Okay, in this video I'll take you through how to make the half section part for making a half section. To get started with this, I'm going to go ahead and open up a brand new Inventor drawing. It's in English, standard INIPT. So we're going to create that model file. From that point, I'm going to go ahead and grab a 2D sketch, and I'm going to drop a 2D sketch on a work plane. At this point, it doesn't really matter what work plane, so I'll go ahead and drop it on there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with this bottom disk area, and this large portion of this feature here has a diameter of 4, and then the extrusion is going to be an extrusion of 0.46. So that's what I'm going to start out with here. So I'm going to go back to my new part. I'm going to grab my circle tool. I'm going to select the center of my modeling XY area, pull out, and type in 4. Now I have a diameter of 4. I can finish the sketch, and then I can create my first extrusion, and that will be found automatically, and I will create the extrusion depth of 0.46. So now I have my first extrusion set at 0.46 with the diameter 4. Okay, the next piece I'm going to do is I'm going to start working with the boss. This section in the center here, this large protrusion off that disc, this is called a boss on this part. And I'm going to work with the outside diameter first, which has a diameter of 2, and it is concentric with the outside circle. And then I'm going to extrude that at 1.45 from that top surface. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a sketch on the top face of my part. Again, grab my circle tool, and I'm going to go ahead and sketch in a diameter of 2. Once I have the diameter set, I'll finish the sketch, go to the Extrude tab, and now I'm going to set my extrusion at 1.45 in height off of the top surface. With it set, I'll hit OK, and now I'm ready to start adding additional features to the part. Alright, so the next thing I need to look at is some of the major features here. There is a hole that runs through the center of this part that is a diameter of 1.22, yet there's also a counter bore in the bottom of this part. You can see that in the section view, in that the counter bore has now become a visible line, and then on the standard view this is still a hidden line. The information I'm going to need for the counter bore is in the note, where it gives me again the diameter of 1.22 with a depth of 1.91, which is indicating full depth of the part. The counter bore is 2.44, and the depth of the counter bore is 0.25. So I'm going to start with the hole tool, and I'm going to work from the back of the part. And I'm just going to hold down my F4 key here, which gives me my free orbit rotate to quickly turn my part without having to move over and grab any of these rotation tools, so I can work all on a smaller screen. Also just like that F4 tool for moving and panning. So now what I'll do is I'm just going to grab my hole tool, and I'm going to select the back of the part. And at this point it doesn't really matter where I select. I'm just going to drop a selection point. And then I'm going to come over to my hole property dialog box. And now I'm going to look down, and the hole type that I'm going to want is going to be a counter bore. So I'm going to go ahead and select that counter bore, and then I'm going to start putting the information in for the counter bore. Well, the first thing is the through hole, and that through hole can be added down here as 1.22, and then my counter bore information can be added at the top next to the dimension symbol for the counter bore diameter, and that's going to be 2.44. By doing that, it then gives me an actual visible preview that Inventor then recognizes as these are counter bore eligible numbers. And I can also look at my depth. My depth currently is at 0.25. I can certainly select it and change it, but the depth for my counter bore is set to be 0.25, so I don't need to change that currently. The only thing that I do need to do is adjust the placement, because certainly this is not the location of the counter bore. What I need to do next is then mouse over the outside or any concentric circle and select it. What that does is now Inventor knows that this will be a concentric feature given those two selection points, and then Inventor is showing me a preview of where this is going to be placed. This being set, everything looks good, all of my information is still set. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. What that has now done is created the center hole through the boss, and it has also created the counter bore for the back of the part. Right, so I think the next piece we need to do here is set up our 4 equally spaced countersinks. So what we're going to do here is the only thing we need to do is we need to space from the center one of these counterbores. Now, the information here is saying that there is a diameter spacing ring that is 3.24 off of the center. So what we'll do is we're going to go back to our part. I'm going to again flip my part around here, and I'm going to go ahead and set a sketch on that face that we're going to put our countersinks on. Then I'll go ahead and grab a circle, and I'm going to go ahead and draw out a 3.24 diameter circle, because I now know that at the intersection of one of my quadrant lines, that's going to be the location of my next hole. So I'll go ahead and just grab a line, and I'm going to draw from center out to that location, which gives me a point at the intersection. That point will help me place and locate my countersink. So I'll finish the sketch. I will grab my hole tool and turn my part so I can see that intersection, and then I should be able to mouse over top of it. A little tiny point will highlight, and then I just select it. Now, what Inventor is remembering is the last part that I was making, which is this giant counterbore. Obviously, that's not correct. So I'm going to now move across and locate the countersink option. Now that I have a countersink option, now I need to go ahead and change this information. The countersink information is peeking through from behind this drawing, so I now just need to start plugging the information in. Well, the through hole for the countersink is set here first, which the diameter of 0.28 is going to be set here, 0.28. Then we're going to start moving through the countersink diameter up top here. This is going to be 0.5. So we set that up, and that's starting to look a whole lot better than what we had before. And then the countersink angle is by 82 degrees, and 82 degrees is a set standard angle, so we're going to leave that as is. So given that information, we're looking good here. And it's set now to go through all, so it should be actually heading all the way through my part, which it is. So with that being set, we should be able to go ahead, hit OK, and then create a countersink, which we have. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up 4 equally spaced countersinks, excuse me, around this part. Easiest way to do that is to grab your circular pattern feature. So you grab your circular pattern feature, and then it's already selected on features. So we need to find the feature that we're going to make. Well, this is the thing that we're going to make a copy of. So you highlight over the countersink, and it gets highlighted. Click on it, it turns blue. Then I'm going to tell it, what is my rotational axis? So I select the rotational axis button, and then I need to find any concentric reference, which is going to be anything round that this thing can use the same center axis point. So it doesn't matter if it's this feature, or this feature. Once I select one of them, they all share the same center axis. That center axis then becomes highlighted in blue, and then you see this circle that is going around that axis. Once you see it, you can see that the default placement is 6. Well, we're going to highlight that and change it to 4. And then it then equally spaces those 4 across that patterned array. We're set at 360 degrees, so it goes all the way around. And then we hit OK. And then it makes those features and equally spaces them for you very quickly. Again, it's a nice feature to use instead of using lines and center points, because if we need to adjust this circular pattern later, and we go into Edit Feature and say that, well, oh, we need 8 now, and hit OK, well, now we have 8 equally spaced features. So if you're working on some type of a hub assembly and you need additional mounting points, it's a very quick way to do that, to make your part updatable and adaptable. So we'll go ahead and do that. So the next piece we're going to do, we have our holes. We're set with 4 holes. We need to place this feature, which is going to be a threaded fastener, into the side of the boss. This would be utilized if we needed to have some type of a set screw that would hold some type of a shaft in this hole. So what we're going to do is we need to look at this threaded feature, or this thread specification, and then know that it's going to be tangent to the surface. So knowing that information, we're going to slide back into Inventor here, and I need to now set up a tangent plane on this curved surface. So I'm going to go ahead and set a new sketch on this top face. By doing that, I now need to set up a point at this outside circle. So the point can be the end of a line, or it can be a point as well. But what I'll do is just grab a line tool, because it seems very easy to grab the center, draw out to the outside circle, find the intersection, and then draw a small line, and we now have a point. So by getting that line in the right position and the point in the right position, the end of this line is a point that I can use to then designate a new work plane. So I grab my work plane, pull it down, and now I'm looking down here and I'm looking for what's going to be tangent to surface through point. When I select that work plane feature, I'm then going to find the end of the line at the point, and then I find this tangent surface, and I've now created, after selecting those two, I now have a tangent surface on that plane. All right, now that we have our plane, I can grab my 2D sketch, and I need to select the edge of that work plane. By selecting the edge of the work plane, it now drops a sketch on that work surface that is tangent to that surface. And really the only thing I need to do here is set up a location point. So I'm going to make a location point that's 0.5 down the side of my part. So I'll find the top of the part. I'm going to come straight down, 0.5. And at the end of that line is where I'm going to locate my next hole. Now I have a location. I grab the hole tool and I'm going to select the end of that line. And now is when I'm going to go ahead and find my tapped hole feature. So at the top we have different holes. We have a simple hole, we have a clearance hole, we have a tapped hole. I'm going to select that tapped hole, and I'm going to come back across here. I do not need counterbore, or spot face, or countersink. This is going to be a simple tapped hole. So with that set up, I'm now going to look at my thread specification here on the drawing, which is 1/4 20 UNC 2B with a depth of 0.39. So over here, I start looking to see, well, where do I have 1/4 20 UNC? I don't know. Well, right here, I see a designation of 5/16 and a pull down. And I see a size. Well, I know that this size is designating your quarter. So I'm going to go find my 1/4 inch. Now I have 1/4 20 UNC. 2B is a default specification. And then I just set my depth. Well, here's my directional depth. And I'm going to go ahead and put in 0.39. That is enough to get through the outside wall of the boss and into that center hole. When I hit OK and then turn my part, you can see that there is an image that is designating the particular threaded feature. Okay, last thing you need to do here is we're going to go ahead and add some fillets to the part, because there's a fillet between the boss and the flange, and that fillet's going to be a radius of 0.3. So I'm going to grab my fillet tool here. I'm going to set my radius up at 0.3, and I'll just select that location, hit apply. And then the next fillet, I believe, look at this, I think there might be a note. No, but the next fillet is going to be a radius of 0.06. So then I'll go ahead and change this to be 0.06, and I'll select the outside of this part. Grab my selection tool. Come on, selection tool. Why won't you let me select you? Find out what's going on here. Fillet again, 0.06. There we go. Not sure why that wasn't working, but now it's working. And I hit apply, cancel, and we have a completed part that we're now ready to lay out, and we can create a half section for.